Vera Timurova was 21 years old and the heiress of one of the city's most influential and powerful families. The only daughter of Timur Timurov, a businessman rapidly rising on the local political scene, and Olga Timurova, a sophisticated and controlling woman with an unforgiving sense of what was right and wrong, Vera had grown up surrounded by everything money could buy. Yet, there was a silent absence in her life. She lacked freedom. From an early age, she had been educated in the best schools, attended the most exclusive clubs, and had been trained to behave as a true lady of the elite. Every gesture, every choice, every word had to align perfectly with the image her parents had so carefully cultivated. That spring afternoon, the halls of the Timurov mansion were buzzing with activity. Olga was organizing an important social event that would bring together not only the city's elite, but also powerful politicians and businessmen. For her, it was a crucial occasion, not only to boost her husband's political career, but also to bring Vera closer to Boris Korovin, an ambitious young entrepreneur and the carefully selected candidate to become Vera's future husband. It wasn't about love or compatibility. It was a strategic alliance, a marriage to benefit both families. While the staff rushed back and forth preparing decorations, food, and final details, Vera had locked herself in her room, gazing out the window at the mansion's garden. Her chest was tight, and the thought of facing yet another night of forced smiles and the role of the perfect daughter weighed heavily on her. Her ever-watchful mother soon came upstairs. "You're not ready yet?" Olga asked sharply, her tone leaving no room for refusal. "Remember, tonight is important, not just for your father, but for you. The mayor will be here, and Boris too. Do not disappoint me, Vera." Vera took a deep breath, fighting the urge to refuse, but as always, she gave in to the pressure. She, dressed in the elegant navy blue gown her mother had chosen, put on high heels, and allowed the professional makeup artist to enhance her natural beauty. When she looked in the mirror, she saw a young woman with an impeccable appearance, but empty eyes. No one here saw who she truly was, only who they expected her to be. During the party, Vera mingled with the guests, exchanging pleasantries and listening to conversations that barely interested her. It was a familiar performance. She smiled outwardly, but longed to escape. At one point, she found herself with her childhood friend Irina, one of the few people she could be honest with. "Everyone expects something from me. Except me," she whispered. Irina squeezed her hand in understanding, but before they could speak more, Olga appeared, calling Vera to pose for photos with Boris and the mayor. Shortly after midnight, as the party began to wind down and the most important guests had left, Timur approached Vera with a broad smile and a silver keychain in his hand. "Here's your gift, my daughter. You deserve it." It was a new car, a gleaming BMW Series 6 parked in the garden, its flawless paint glistening under the lights. The remaining guests gathered around, applauding and congratulating Vera. Timur and Olga smiled proudly at the display. For any other young woman, this might have been a moment of pure joy. But for Vera, it was just another shackle, another symbol of the control her family held over her life. With a polite smile, she thanked her father and accepted the keys. But deep inside, she knew this wasn't a gift. It was another way to keep her under their watch. Soon after, weary from the social obligations, Vera had a sudden idea. She would take the new car and go out alone, if only to taste a few hours of freedom. She told her friend and quietly slipped away. In the parking area, she started the car and for the first time in ages smiled genuinely. She had no destination. She just wanted to drive aimlessly with no one telling her what to do. The night wore on and the city streets were nearly deserted. The streetlights cast long golden lines on the asphalt. Vera drove with a slight buzz from the glasses of wine she'd had at the party. She didn't feel drunk, but her reflexes and attention were clearly impaired. Her mind raced. Why must I always follow the script they write for me? Will I ever be able to choose my own path? She wondered, accelerating through the empty avenues. In a fatal instant, distracted by the lights and her own thoughts, she turned a corner sharply and didn't see the figure crossing the street. A sudden impact, a muffled cry, and Vera's world stopped. She slammed on the brakes, her heart pounding, her hands trembling on the wheel. When she got out of the car, she saw a young woman lying on the asphalt, groaning in pain. Her name was Nadia, a hard-working young woman from humble beginnings. She studied and worked to help her mother, Luba, who had raised her alone after separating from her husband. Now Nadia lay on the ground, her legs severely injured, her face filled with pain and despair. Vera panicked. She tried to call her father. Timur's voice was cold and direct. Say nothing. Don't talk to anyone. Get back in the car. Lock the doors. I'm coming. While she waited, more people began to gather. Someone called an ambulance. When the paramedics arrived, they took both Nadia and Vera to the hospital. During the ride, Vera felt like a criminal. With every passing minute, the weight of guilt pressed harder on her chest. At the hospital, things worsened. Luba arrived, frantic after hearing about the accident. When she saw Vera, she immediately recognized her. Her anger and grief were overwhelming. I don't want money. I don't want deals. I want her to pay for what she did, she said through tears. When Timur arrived with his lawyer, the plan was simple. Control the narrative, prevent a scandal, and make everything go away quietly. But then something unexpected happened. Looking at Luba and Nadia, Vera could no longer lie. She couldn't hide behind her father's protection. With a trembling voice, she said aloud for everyone to hear, "It was me. I was driving. I had been drinking. I hit her." The confession hit the room like a bomb. Timur was furious. The lawyer, stunned, tried to stop her, but the damage was done. From that moment on, Vera's life would change forever. What seemed like just another night of appearances would become the start of a redemption journey she could never have imagined. The impact of the accident rippled far beyond that quiet night. As the ambulance took Nadia to the hospital and Vera rode with the paramedics, word spread quickly through the city's social and political circles. No reporters knew the details yet, but the Timurov name carried enough weight to turn any whisper into a roar. At the hospital, Timur arrived shortly after, accompanied by his personal lawyer, Sergei Novikov, a man known for his cold efficiency in burying scandals. Timur, pale with anger and worry, went straight to his daughter, who was waiting in a private room. His eyes blazed, not with concern for Vera's well-being, but at the gravity of the situation. "You had no right to do this." "Not now, not during the campaign," he hissed through clenched teeth. But for Vera, his words felt empty. What weighed on her most was the image of Nadia injured, the sound of the crash, the desperate look in Luba's eyes. Meanwhile, Luba had rushed to the hospital with a neighbor. A simple woman, hardened by years of work as a seamstress, her face showed a mix of fear and outrage. Seeing her daughter pale and in a cast, a knot formed in her throat. When she learned who was responsible for the accident, a fire lit in her chest. The daughter of Timur Timurov, that arrogant man who thought himself above the law. While Sergei worked behind the scenes to negotiate a settlement, Luba was summoned to a meeting. In a cold hospital room, the lawyer presented an offer. "We'll ensure the best medical care, cover all expenses, and provide generous compensation, in exchange for no legal action and media silence." Luba listened silently. The words meant nothing to her. This wasn't about money. Her daughter had been harmed, not by a random accident, but by a reckless young woman who believed she could act without consequence. When the lawyer finished, Luba replied firmly, "I don't want your money. I want that girl to truly pay for what she did. I want her to learn." Hearing this, Vera's guilt deepened. The image of Nadia's injured leg, Luba's anguish, she couldn't shake them. Surrounded by her father and the lawyer, she felt suffocated. She didn't want to lie or run. For the first time, she couldn't bear being just another pawn in a game of appearances. When Timur insisted she stay quiet and follow the plan, Vera lifted her gaze. Her voice was shaky but resolute. I was the one. I drove. I drank. I hit her. The room fell into a heavy silence. Timur turned pale. Sergei tried to intervene, but it was too late. The confession had been heard. It was the beginning of a chapter. No one could control Dot in the days that followed. The story exploded in the media. The Timurov name was on every headline. Despite Sergei's efforts to control the narrative, the rumors spread like wildfire. The scandal threatened not only the family's reputation, but Timur's entire political campaign, once a sure victory. The mansion became a war room, with consultants scrambling to contain the damage. Vera, meanwhile, isolated herself. She refused to attend strategy meetings, wouldn't answer the phone, wouldn't speak to her mother. The image of Nadia haunted her. Deep inside, she knew Luba was right. No amount of money would erase what had happened. And more than ever, she felt the need to face the consequences. Inside the mansion, pressure mounted. Olga, furious, demanded Vera return to her role. You can't afford a moral breakdown now, she said. There are alliances at stake. Your marriage to Boris must proceed. It's all that's left to maintain our position. But Vera saw no point in continuing that path. For the first time, she believed in something. She wanted to make amends. She refused the marriage. Refused to lie. And when Luba publicly declared she would not accept money, but wanted the guilty party to help her daughter personally, Vera shocked everyone. At a family dinner, all eyes on her, she declared, if that's what she wants, I accept. I will help. Nadia, I will stay in their home for as long as it takes. Timur nearly dropped his wine glass. Olga had a nervous breakdown. Sergei warned this would ruin the family completely. But Vera was determined. And so, on a cold autumn morning, Vera knocked on the door of Luba and Nadia's modest apartment. Wearing simple clothes, carrying only a small suitcase, her heart raced. Luba greeted her with a wary look, still bitter with pain. So you really came, she said. Know this isn't a hotel. You will work, you will help. Your last name means nothing here. Vera nodded. She was ready. She wanted to face it. To feel, in every action, the weight of what she had done. In the first days living in Luba's house, Vera felt the weight of a new world. Everything there was different, unfamiliar, almost hostile. It wasn't just the simplicity of the home or the absence of luxury that made her uncomfortable. It was the complete absence of masks. Every gesture from Luba and Nadia was real, direct, without the layers of pretense that filled the social circles Vera had always belonged to. Early each morning, Vera woke up to the strong smell of freshly brewed coffee, an aroma that filled the small kitchen. Luba was already up, wearing an apron, while Nadia, still with her leg in a cast, shifted herself on the sofa. Vera, used to being served, had to quickly learn how to make her own coffee and help tidy up. She picked up the dish towel, organized the dishes, and attentively learned how to wash and store everything in the old, worn wooden cupboard. Housework became a lesson in humility. Her once delicate, manicured hands grew rough. The heat of the boiling water, the weight of the broom, the sharp scent of cleaning products revealed a new reality. Here, no one cared about her lineage, her Timurov name, or the designer dresses she had once worn to lavish parties. Here, only effort, respect, and sincerity mattered. Nadia, though recovering, kept her distance. Her gaze remained guarded. The young woman who had once been cheerful and full of dreams now lived with the physical and emotional pain of an accident that had changed her life. Her father, Andrei, absent for years, hadn't even visited. Her mother, Luba, did everything she could to keep the household running. But the weight of the situation pressed on Nadia like a constant shadow. For Luba, Vera's presence was a mix of satisfaction and challenge. On one hand, seeing the wealthy young woman working day after day was a form of justice. On the other, there was the fear that it was only temporary, that Vera would give up at the first setback. So Luba remained, strict and demanding, assigning tasks and holding Vera accountable. Back at the Timarov mansion, tensions were rising. Timur, watching his political campaign crumble, spent long hours in meetings. The media refused to let the scandal fade. Every detail of Vera's new life fed public curiosity. Olga, furious, blamed everyone. In her view, Vera was destroying the family's legacy. Boris, driven by wounded pride and obsession, tried in every way to force Vera to return. He sent messages, showed up uninvited, spread rumors. He couldn't accept her rejection, and even less that she now lived among the commoners. But with each attempt, Vera became more resolute. Amid this new life, an unexpected figure emerged. Alexander, a quiet and hardworking neighbor, began to notice Vera. He owned a small repair shop, supported his ill mother, and carried the wisdom of someone who had faced many battles. At first, they crossed paths in the hallway or on the street. Alexander greeted her respectfully. Vera, still shy, responded with a small smile. As the days passed, their encounters grew more frequent. One day, when the apartment's plumbing needed repairs, Alexander was called in by Luba. Vera watched, curious at his skill and simplicity. Afterward, she offered him coffee. They chatted for a few minutes. For Vera, it was a surprise to meet someone who treated her neither with disdain nor with excessive reverence. Alexander saw her simply as a young woman trying to find her place. Their conversations became more regular. Alexander spoke of his mother, his shop, and how he had left university to care for his family. Vera, in turn, slowly shared details of her life, the pressures she had faced, and the choices she had never been allowed to make. There was a silent empathy between them, a mutual respect that grew with each meeting. Meanwhile, Vera adapted more and more to her new routine. She cooked, cleaned, helped Nadia with her studies. She began to discover beauty in small things, the smell of freshly baked bread, Nadia's joy at learning something new, the laughter they shared after a day of work. These experiences, so far from the superficial world she once knew, gave her a new sense of purpose. Her relationship with Nadia also evolved. At first, marked by distrust, it began to have moments of likeness. One day, seeing Vera struggling to prepare a traditional Russian dish, Nadia couldn't help laughing. "You're a disaster in the kitchen," she teased. Laughing with her, Vera replied, "But I'm trying." That moment broke the ice. Gradually, barriers began to fall. Even Luba, with her stern exterior, started to recognize Vera's sincerity. She saw the young woman's dedication, her genuine effort. One night while sewing, Luba murmured to herself, "Who would have thought that girl is changing?" But outside their small world, tensions persisted. Boris became more aggressive, publicly confronting Vera and trying to humiliate her in front of Alexander. But Vera stood firm. "I'm not yours. I never was." "Don't you dare threaten me," she declared. This surprised everyone. The once submissive young woman, shaped by others' expectations, now showed unexpected strength. Timur realized his daughter would not yield. His public image collapsed, and his political empire began to crumble. Meanwhile, in Luba's modest home, a new chapter in Vera's life was being written. It was no longer just a punishment. It was a journey of self-discovery and rebuilding. Away from the spotlights and grand halls, Vera was finally finding what she had never known: authenticity, respect, humanity. And this was just the beginning. Weeks had passed since Vera moved into Luba's house. What had initially seemed like a passing scandal had now become a prolonged drama. threatening to drag the Timarov family's reputation through the mud. Each day that Vera remained away from the mansion was an affront to high society. The media wouldn't let the story fade, and rumors among the elite ran wild. Timur and Olga were in a constant state of alert. One thing was certain: the situation couldn't continue much longer. A new plan was devised. Under pressure from political allies and advisors, Timur decided the only solution was to formalize an agreement that would resolve the matter once and for all, not just to protect his candidacy, but to regain control over his daughter. The family's experienced lawyer was tasked with drafting a detailed contract. The offer included a generous sum of money, top-tier medical treatment for Nadia, full physical therapy, and a non-litigation commitment from Luba. In short, it was an attempt to turn moral reparation into paper and figures, but Luba wasn't easily swayed. When she received an invitation to lunch at one of the city's most sophisticated restaurants, she knew immediately what they wanted. Still, she accepted, not out of interest or vanity, but to look into the eyes of those who had underestimated her. In the elegant restaurant, Olga and the lawyer waited. As soon as Luba arrived, dressed simply but impeccably clean, curious glances turned toward her. She didn't seem to belong in such a place, but her upright posture and steady gaze showed she wasn't there to bow to anyone. The lawyer began with rehearsed phrases about the family's concern, their desire to repair the damage, and Nadia's future. When he presented the contract, Olga, with a tense smile, added, "We just want things to return to normal. No one needs to suffer anymore." Luba read every line carefully, then sighed. "You think everything can be solved with money? You think my daughter's life is worth a contract?" Before anyone could respond, she continued, "I don't want your money. I want that girl to learn. I want her to look in the mirror and see what she did. I won't accept a deal that buys silence and pain." The lawyer was speechless. Olga tried to argue, but Luba was firm. "Either you accept, or tomorrow I'll be at the police station and talking to the press." The refusal left Timur and Olga in a panic. To them, Luba's stance was irrational and dangerous. But ironically, it was Vera who helped calm the situation. When her parents confronted her, she was clear. "I won't return. I won't run from this. I'm here by choice." This shocked Olga. In an emotional conversation, she tried to persuade her daughter. "You can't do this, Vera. You have a name to uphold, a position." But Vera, with surprising calm, replied, "Mother, for the first time in my life, I'm doing something that matters. I'm not going back." The conflict deepened. Boris, now desperate and losing his public standing, tried emotional blackmail. "If you love me, come back. If you don't, it's all over." But Vera didn't hesitate. "I don't love you, Boris. I never did. I won't. Marry out of obligation." With no other options, Timur reluctantly accepted Luba's terms. There would be no formal agreement, no buying of silence. Vera would continue living at Luba's home, helping Nadia recover, for however long it took. It was a deep blow to the family, but unavoidable. At Luba's home, Vera threw herself fully into her new life. No longer as someone serving a sentence, but as someone beginning to understand the value of every small gesture. Her relationship with Nadia improved daily. The initial coldness was replaced by a growing bond. They talked more, laughed, shared confidences. Nadia, even while recovering, began to see Vera differently. Luba also couldn't deny the young woman's sincerity. She watched how Vera cared for Nadia, how she took responsibility around the house, how she strove to learn. There was no pretense. Meanwhile, Vera's connection with Alexander deepened. Their encounters, once casual, became more frequent. Shared glances, smiles, small acts of kindness. Alexander, with his simplicity and authenticity, offered Vera something new. No hidden motives, no games, no status. Just truth, behind the scenes. Pressure on Timur continued. His political campaign collapsed. Allies distanced themselves. The media speculated openly about his downfall. But for Vera, those headlines no longer mattered. In the small world of Luba's home, she had found something priceless, a space where she could be herself. No longer a daughter or a pawn, but simply Vera, a young woman, rebuilding her life one humble step at a time. The days passed, and Luba's home became a new universe for Vera. It was no longer just a temporary place or a punishment she endured with resignation. Slowly, it became a space where she began to discover herself. The young woman who had arrived humiliated, lost, still, carrying guilt and fear, now found herself changing a little more each morning. It was as if, with every dish washed, every floor scrubbed, every meal prepared with her own hands, a part of her old world was fading away. Vera now woke early, before sunrise, something unimaginable in her old routine. At the Timurov mansion, morning started late with servants attending to her. Here, at Luba's home, the day began with the strong aroma of fresh coffee, the creak of the old wooden floorboards, and pale light filtering through the worn curtain. Vera, wearing an apron, and with her hair simply tied back, took on daily chores with a diligence that surprised even herself. Her small bedroom had no luxury. A firm mattress, an old wardrobe, and a desk where she stacked books she had started reading, discovering new interests. There were no silk sheets or embroidered cushions, but there was an unexpected sense of belonging. Every fold in her blanket, every attempt to make that little space cozier, meant far more than any of the luxurious environments she had left behind. During the day, Vera split her time between caring for Nadia, who still struggled with her injury, and helping Luba with housework. She prepared breakfast, learned new recipes patiently, cleaned the bathroom, organized cupboards, and took Nadia for short walks down the hallway. These tasks, which once might have seemed trivial or beneath her, now offered her something profound. A real sense of usefulness and purpose. Perhaps the most transformative part of Vera's new life was her relationship with Nadia. In the beginning, a wall stood between them. Nadia, understandably, carried resentment and distrust. But Vera's sincerity and constant dedication began to break through that resistance. Their conversation started short and formal, but gradually became more relaxed and natural. Nadia, perceptive and quick-witted, realized that Vera was there by choice, not by her parents' orders or any agreement. There were unexpected moments of tenderness. One afternoon, as Vera gently brushed Nadia's hair, the girl commented with a half-smile that no one besides her mother had ever treated her with such care. Vera felt a lump in her throat. Simple words like these held enormous meaning for someone who had spent her life surrounded by falseness and appearances. Luba continued to watch everything closely. A woman of strong character, shaped by years of hardship, she still kept some reservations about Vera. She feared this transformation might be superficial or temporary. But with each new gesture, she saw signs of real change. Her sternness softened bit by bit, though she rarely voiced it openly. Back at the Timurov mansion, the tension was unbearable. The elite social circle began to shun the family. Olga, desperate to restore their reputation, grew more bitter and harsh. Her phone calls to Vera were constant, full of emotional blackmail. She appealed to her daughter's pride, to her public shame, to her duty to preserve the family name. But Vera no longer wavered. Each call ended with the same firm reply, "I will not come back." Boris, meanwhile, grew more insistent and dangerous. His personal frustration mixed with the collapse of his political and social plans. He started showing up unannounced, pressuring mutual acquaintances, even threatening Alexander, who remained calm but unwavering. Amid this new world, Vera's relationship with Alexander grew more intense. At first, their encounters were brief and practical. Alexander came to fix a leak or bring supplies for Luba, but over time, Their shared looks, small gestures, and longer conversations revealed a deeper connection. Alexander saw in Vera a young woman reborn. He admired her courage, her honesty. In admitting mistakes, her effort to rebuild her identity. Vera, in turn, found in Alexander a steady and genuine presence. There was no pretense, no hidden motive. He treated her as an equal, as a person, not as a trophy or tool for someone else's gain. One sunny afternoon, while they walked to the pharmacy for Nadia's medicine, Vera confided to Alexander that she never imagined feeling so alive while washing dishes or sweeping the floor. Strangely, it was in these simple moments that she learned more about herself than in any luxurious event or trip. Alexander smiled and said, "Sometimes real life begins when you lose everything you once thought was essential." As their relationship blossomed, Vera's presence in Luba's home felt increasingly natural. Nadia now asked for her help willingly, invited her to watch movies, and discussed schoolwork with her. Luba, though not openly admitting it, began to trust Vera. One night while sewing, she softly remarked, "I don't know how I would have managed all this without you." Despite the progress in the home, external threats remained. News of Boris's aggression and Timur's crumbling campaign reached them regularly. Luba worried that something might disrupt their newfound stability, but Vera remained steadfast. She would not run. She would not be intimidated. One pivotal moment came when Boris showed up drunk and furious one night, trying to force a conversation with Vera on the street. With Alexander nearby, Vera confronted Boris firmly, declaring clearly that she would no longer be anyone's pawn. Alexander admired her courage. It was a decisive break. After that confrontation, it was clear to all that Vera would never go back. Neither Boris, nor Olga, nor Timur held any power over her. Inside Luba's home, a new respect for Vera emerged. She was no longer the wealthy girl seeking redemption. She was a woman rebuilding her own path. This new reality showed in the little things. When cooking for Nadia and Luba, Vera tried recipes she had learned on her own, hoping to please. She began saving her own money, refusing any help from her parents. She enjoyed buying simple flowers to decorate the living room. She read books from the public library, writing her thoughts in an old notebook. During a quiet dinner, by the soft light of the living room lamp, Nadia, full of affection, suddenly said, "Vera, you're part of this house now. I don't know what we'd do without you." Luba, listening silently, didn't disagree. Her look showed acceptance, even a hint of pride. And so, in that humble home, among simple tasks and newly formed bonds, Vera found something she had always lacked: an authentic life, a freedom that no money or title had ever provided. And with each gesture, each breath, she knew there was no turning back. Asterisk, asterisk. Life in Luba's house continued to transform Vera. She was no longer a temporary guest or an unwanted presence. But as with any intense coexistence, conflicts were inevitable. Despite the growing respect between Vera, Luba, and Nadia, there were days of tension, harsh words, and long silences. Their fragile harmony required daily effort to maintain. Nadia, although becoming closer to Vera, still carried emotional scars. The physical pain had lessened with time and treatment, but the accident had left invisible wounds. Some mornings, feeling more down, Nadia would withdraw and refuse interaction. During these times, Vera gave her space, even if it saddened her. She had learned that forgiveness and true friendship couldn't be rushed. They were slow processes built with patience and sincerity. Luba remained vigilant. She watched Vera's every move, sometimes with approval, sometimes with skepticism. She wasn't a woman easily fooled. Though she saw Vera changing, part of her stayed alert. She didn't want her daughter hurt again or their fragile peace ruined by a mistake. Still, moments of softness began to slip through. A gentler look, a less stern word, small signs that her hardened heart was slowly opening. Outside, the pressures remained intense. Olga, especially, became suffocating. Her calls and messages increased. Each time, she tried to convince Vera to return, warning that the family's reputation was in ruins. She used pride, guilt, and fear, but her words no longer held sway. Vera, strengthened by her new life, responded with surprising firmness. "I will not return, Mother." Each time she repeated it, she felt freer. Boris, meanwhile, became increasingly aggressive. His obsession with controlling Vera grew as he saw his influence slipping away. He began following her discreetly, showing up where she might be. He tried intimidating Alexander, who remained calm but firm. Avoided confrontation seemed inevitable. Through it all, Vera's relationship with Alexander matured naturally. Their moments went beyond friendship. Each conversation grew deeper, revealing fears, dreams, and vulnerabilities. Alexander spoke. Little of his past, but Vera knew he had sacrificed much for his family. When his mother became ill, he had abandoned his engineering studies to open the repair shop. A man who understood the weight of hard choices, which made him even more admirable to Vera. One afternoon, while they painted a wall together to freshen up the apartment, Alexander said thoughtfully, "Sometimes, what we lose makes us stronger than what we gain." Vera silently agreed. Her old world, full of luxury and power, had never made her strong. On the contrary. Here, in this simple life, through daily struggles, she found strength she never imagined. That an unexpected event soon shook the household. Andrei, Nadia's father, reappeared after years of absence. Moved by his daughter's situation, he wanted to reconnect, but it wasn't easy. Luba, bitter and wary, didn't want him near. Her pain was still fresh. But encouraged by Vera and Alexander, Andrei sincerely tried to make amends. At first, his conversations with Nadia were tense and full of silence. But with patience and consistency, Andrei slowly began rebuilding trust. Vera watched with hope and apprehension. She believed forgiveness was hard, but that everyone deserved a second chance. When Luba discovered that Vera had encouraged Andrei's return, she reacted with mixed emotions. She didn't want outsiders meddling in family matters, but she couldn't deny Vera's good intentions. Quietly, her trust in Vera grew a little more. The young woman's transformation was undeniable. Meanwhile, Timur's public image fell apart. The press attacked him. Political allies distanced themselves. Boris, desperate, acted recklessly, manipulating journalists and spreading lies about Vera and Luba's family. But it only worsened his reputation. Amid this tension, Vera stood firm. Even with Boris's threats and her mother's insistence, she didn't waver. She was certain her path was the right one. One cold morning, a small household accident brought everyone even closer. Distracted while preparing coffee, Vera left a cloth too close to the stove. A fire quickly spread to the curtain. Panic ensued. But Luba and Alexander acted fast and contained it. Afterward, the three women sat in the kitchen with warm tea. Their nerves soon turned to laughter. Nadia joked, "Now you're officially part of the house, Vera. None of us get through without causing trouble here." Their laughter marked a moment of true acceptance. From that day on, Vera truly felt part of the home. No longer a rich girl serving a sentence, but someone who valued the small things, faced hardship with humility, and built genuine relationships. Each morning brought a new lesson. Each chore, no matter how simple, carried special meaning. Vera also began reading about education and child development. Perhaps because she saw in Nadia and her own story a reflection of so many unseen lives in society. She shared her new interests with Alexander, who supported her with quiet encouragement. Not everything was peaceful. Boris remained a threat. One evening, he ambushed Vera near a market. Alexander nearby quickly intervened. There was no physical fight, but the warning was clear. Afterward, Vera told Alexander, "I won't live in fear. I won't be a prisoner of my past." He looked into her eyes and replied, "You're not alone, Vera. You never will be." At the Timarov mansion, things worsened. Timur reflected on his failures. Olga, bitter and alone, sank deeper into resentment. At Luba's house, however, a spirit of unity grew. Despite hardships, it was a true home. For Vera, that was real wealth. And with each new day, she moved further from the young woman she had been. She was becoming someone new, someone better. The days passed, and every morning felt like a new awakening for Vera. The transformation she was undergoing was not only visible in her actions, but especially in what she felt inside. The guilt that had consumed her in the early weeks was now giving way to a different kind of serenity. It wasn't the peace of someone who had fully redeemed herself, but of someone who had accepted that she was on a new path and still had much to learn. At Luba's house, the simple routine had become part of her essence. She woke early, prepared coffee, cleaned the kitchen, and helped Nadia with her schoolwork. It was a complete contrast to the morning she had known at her parents' mansion, where servants prepared her breakfast and everything was planned by others. Now every small task was done by her own hands. And there was beauty in that, a satisfaction she had never known. Nadia, whose recovery was progressing well, now walked with crutches and felt more energetic. Their relationship had not only lightened, but had become genuinely affectionate. They had long conversations at night, shared confidences, and often laughed late into the evening. Nadia, with her sharp nature, soon noticed something new in Vera's heart. It was inevitable. With each encounter with Alexander, Vera's heart beat faster. The way he spoke to her, always with respect and sincerity, deeply moved her. He was not a man of empty words or calculated gestures. Alexander was genuine and true, and that attracted her more than anything else. For the first time, Vera felt truly seen for who she was, not as a symbol of status or as someone's daughter. Alexander, in turn, saw in Vera a woman in transformation. The spoiled, submissive young woman had become someone authentic, fully engaged in her daily tasks. He admired her willpower, her humility, and above all, her courage in facing her mistakes. Their conversations grew increasingly intimate. They shared stories from the past, dreams and frustrations. Alexander spoke of how he had sacrificed his education to care for his sick mother. Vera spoke of the suffocating expectations that had weighed on her all her life and of the loneliness she had felt despite her wealth. One Sunday afternoon, while walking through a nearby park, Vera tearfully confessed, "I think you're the only person who sees me for who I really am, not as someone's daughter." Alexander stopped, looked into her eyes, and replied with a gentle smile, "Because you are much more than that, Vera." His words echoed in her heart for days. No one had ever spoken to her like that, so simply and sincerely, while Vera embraced this new phase. The situation at the Timarov mansion worsened. Timur's political campaign was in ruins. His allies had abandoned him, his public image was shattered, and the media pressure was relentless. Olga, in despair, blamed Vera for everything. But her words no longer affected Vera. Boris became increasingly unstable. Unable to accept rejection and afraid of losing his status, he resorted to dangerous behaviors. He tried to approach Vera by force, showed up in public places, and even followed Alexander. During one confrontation, Alexander stood his ground, calmly but firmly, making it clear he would protect Vera at any cost. Luba, realizing the risks, grew more protective of Vera. Though she remained reserved, she treated the young woman with increasing care. There was a growing sense of mutual protection in the house. Around this time, Luba's birthday approached. Nadia, excited, wanted to organize a small celebration at home. Vera eagerly helped with every detail. They prepared Luba's favorite dishes, decorated the house with simple flowers, and invited a few close friends. Alexander, naturally, was also invited. The modest but warm party was a success. Joy filled the house. During the celebration, Vera and Alexander exchanged increasingly meaningful glances. At one point, alone on the porch, Alexander began to speak. "Vera, I—" But before he could finish, they were interrupted. ****. Boris, clearly drunk, burst into the party. His aggressive presence caused a commotion. He tried to force Vera to leave with him, shouting and threatening. But this time, Vera stood firm. "You no longer control me, Boris. You won't tell me what to do anymore." With Alexander and Luba's support, Boris was expelled. The incident quickly spread through social circles and the media, further damaging Timur and Olga's already ruined reputation. But for Vera, the moment was liberating. It confirmed that there was no turning back. In the following days, Vera and Alexander grew even closer. Every small gesture, every glance, every conversation reinforced a feeling neither could deny. They knew the road ahead would be difficult, with social barriers and emotional wounds to overcome. But with each sunrise, Vera was more certain of her new life. Titles, wealth, status no longer mattered. What mattered was what she felt, what she did, and the people she shared her days with. One quiet night, while walking beside Alexander, under the city lights, Vera felt her heart light. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of the future. She was ready to face whatever came. This path was hers now. And with Alexander and her new family, she could finally be happy. Days following the birthday party scandal marked a point of no return in Vera's life. The tension that had built up finally broke into a series of inevitable changes. For the first time, Vera truly felt free to choose her own destiny, despite the many uncertainties. The young woman who had once lived under the control of a powerful family now knew there was no going back. News of the confrontation with Boris quickly spread. It became the most talked about story in the city's elite circles, newspapers, and social media. Timur and Olga could not contain the scandal. Political. All eyes began distancing themselves, fearing association with the disgraced family. Society columns speculated whether Vera had gone mad, been manipulated by lower-class people, or was driven by forbidden love. To Vera, none of that mattered anymore. At the Timurov mansion, the atmosphere was unbearable. Timur, once a pillar of control, now showed exhaustion and defeat. His political campaign, years in the making, was in ruins. Advisors informed him that public rejection was rising and that victory was impossible. For the first time, Timur questioned his own choices. As a father and husband, Olga, in contrast, showed no remorse. Consumed by anger, she blamed Vera for destroying the family's reputation and Timur's political ambitions. Their marriage, already strained for years, finally began to collapse under the weight of these tensions. Frequent and violent arguments left no illusion of unity. Boris grew more dangerous. Humiliated in public, he started stalking Vera, following her from a distance and feeding his resentment. His downfall was visible and worrying, even to his former allies. At Luba's home, life was different. Despite its simplicity, there was a sense of home, safety, and truth that Vera had never known. Each new day confirmed her desire never to return to her old life. She found purpose in small daily acts, helping Nadia with her studies, cooking, keeping the house in order, and sharing genuine moments with her new family. Her bond with Nadia was stronger than ever. They confided in each other, laughed, and supported one another. Nadia no longer saw Vera as the rich girl who had caused her pain, but as a friend, a constant and dear presence. Luba also recognized this change. Vera had earned her place through effort and sincerity. Alexander remained Vera's emotional anchor. Their bond deepened each day. Each conversation, glance, and touch carried an intensity beyond words. They both knew their feelings were real, but also understood the obstacles ahead. Alexander, wise and patient, never pressured Vera, respecting her need to heal fully. Danger still lurked. One night near a dimly lit street, Boris tried to ambush Vera. Fortunately, Alexander, returning from work, noticed and intervened. The tense encounter ended without violence, but it was clear Boris would not give up easily. That night in Alexander's arms, Vera tearfully confessed, "I can't live in fear anymore. I won't be a prisoner of my past." Alexander replied, "You are not alone, Vera. You never will be." After this incident, security became a priority. The neighborhood community, sympathetic to Vera, also watched out for her safety. Meanwhile, Timur publicly announced his withdrawal from politics. His speech, framed as a choice to prioritize family, was seen as a desperate attempt to salvage his image. For Vera, it signaled that perhaps her father was beginning to see what truly mattered. With her old world in ruins, Vera was more determined than ever. One rainy afternoon, helping Alexander with repairs, they had a deep conversation. Sharing their pasts and hopes brought them even closer. Alone that night, Vera made a decision. She would not return to her old life. Her choices would now be her own. The next day, she told Alexander, "I choose you. I don't know when or how, but I want to build a new path with you." Emotionally, he embraced her. No words were needed. At the Timurov mansion, the final collapse came. After weeks of bitter fights, Timur and Olga ended their marriage. There was no more bitterness, only the acceptance that their life together was over. For Vera, this confirmed what she already knew. The old world was gone. Now she would build a new life, one truly her own. And with that conviction, she faced the future with strength. The winds of change were blowing stronger than ever. That early spring, the city seemed to breathe new air, as if the streets, the trees, and the sky were ready to close one chapter and open another. And at the heart of this transformation was Vera, the young woman who had once been trapped in a world of appearances, now walked with firm steps toward a life built on her own choices. Timur's political downfall was complete. After his official resignation, the newspapers quickly lost interest in the man who had once been a major public figure. The Timurov mansion now seemed like a mausoleum of the past, filled with silence and bitterness. Olga, her pride wounded, was preparing to fade from the public scene. The grand parties, the strategic alliances, all had vanished like smoke. In this desolate setting, Timur reflected for the first time on the true meaning of success and failure. Luba's house, life had found a new rhythm. Vera was now truly part of the family, not as a guest or court-mandated helper, but as someone whose presence was wanted and valued. Her mornings began with simple but meaningful tasks: making breakfast, helping Nadia with her studies, doing laundry, and organizing the home. She was no longer the wealthy heiress afraid to dirty her hands. She found dignity in the work, joy in the daily routines, and new meaning in her life. Her relationship with Nadia had blossomed. The girl, once guarded, now saw Vera as a friend, almost an older sister. They shared confidences, laughed, and supported each other. Their bond went beyond past resentments, built on honesty and true affection. Luba watched this transformation closely. At first, she had been hesitant to admit it, but now she could not deny the truth. Vera had changed. She was no longer a spoiled girl serving a sentence, but a young woman who had earned her place through effort and sincerity. One morning, while ironing clothes in the kitchen, Luba broke a long silence. "You've changed, Vera. I can't deny it." Vera responded with a humble smile. "I think, for the first time, I'm really getting to know myself." Another important development was unfolding. Nadia's father, Andrei, was working hard to rebuild his relationship with his daughter. Encouraged by Alexander and Vera, Andrei visited often, sincerely trying to make amends. It wasn't easy. Nadia, though mature, still carried the pain of abandonment. But Andrei's consistent presence slowly broke down her walls. One sunny afternoon, sitting together on the couch, Nadia asked tearfully, "Are you going to leave again, Dad?" Andrei held her hand and replied sincerely, "No, sweetheart, not anymore. If you'll let me, I want to be part of your life." The moment moved everyone. Luba, listening from the kitchen, smiled quietly. Vera, watching from a distance, felt a deep pride. She knew she had helped bring about this reunion. Meanwhile, an unexpected change was occurring at the Timirov mansion. Timur, now introspective, began to see the emptiness left by his pursuit of power. His estrangement from Olga, the collapse of his career, and his broken relationship with Vera forced him to reflect. In a surprising move, he asked Alexander for help in arranging a meeting with Vera. He wanted no arguments, just a conversation between father and daughter. Alexander, though surprised, sensed Timur's sincerity and spoke to Vera. After some thought, she agreed. They met in a quiet park, away from prying eyes. They sat in silence for a long time before Timur finally spoke. "I made many mistakes. I never saw you as a person, only as a piece in my game. I can't change the past, but I want you to know I'm proud of the woman you've become." Vera looked at him calmly and replied, "I just wish I'd had the chance to be myself before, Father. But now I'm living my own life." It was a moment of reconciliation. The past wasn't erased, but there was room for a new, more honest relationship. Meanwhile, Vera's bond with Alexander deepened every day. Their connection was built on truth and respect. It wasn't an impulsive passion, but a love that grew with every shared moment. One quiet evening, while walking under the stars, Alexander said, "I don't know what the future holds, but if you want, I'd like to be by your side." Vera answered with a tender smile, "I do, Alexander, I really do." Even Olga was beginning to change. Worn down by defeat and realizing she could no longer control her daughter, she asked to see Vera. Their meeting was tense but civil. "I hope you know what you're doing," Olga said. "In the end, I just want you to be happy." Though far from an apology, the words meant a lot to Vera. It was a small step toward acknowledging her independence. With reconciliations and new beginnings, Vera's life was taking shape. She didn't know what the future would bring, but one thing was certain: from now on, her choices would be her own. And that was a victory. In the weeks that followed, Vera found new stability and new goals. She decided to return to her studies, not to please her mother or for appearances, but for herself. After much thought, she chose to study education. She wanted to work with children and young people, to help change lives as hers had been changed. One sunny morning, she gathered Luba, Nadia, and Alexander to share her decision. "I want to study education. I want to help others, the way you all helped me." Nadia jumped with joy and hugged her. Luba, with tears in her eyes, said, "I'm so proud of you, girl." Alexander added warmly, "It's a beautiful path. And I'll be with you every step of the way." And so, as spring blossomed and the city renewed itself, Vera took another step toward her new future. A future that finally was truly hers. Spring had arrived in Moscow. The trees were vibrant green, flowers adorned windows, and the harsh winter had given way to softer, brighter days. It was as if the whole city was coming to life again, leaving behind the gray days and making room for hope and new beginnings. For Vera, this renewal couldn't have been more symbolic. She too was living a new beginning, a personal rebirth she had never imagined possible months ago. Life at Luba's house had become natural. Vera was no longer a visitor or a rich girl serving a sentence. She was part of the household, part of their daily life. Her mornings began with lovingly prepared coffee, followed by small tasks she performed with joy. Laundry, sweeping the yard, helping Nadia with homework, or cooking a simple meal. Each of these tasks gave her a sense of fulfillment, so different from the emptiness she had felt at gala dinners and elite social events. Afternoons were special. Often, she and Nadia would walk through the neighborhood or read together in the Villa Park. During these walks, they shared dreams and stories. Through Nadia's eyes, Vera saw a world not of luxury, but of genuine feelings and real connections. Luba observed all this with a mix of pride and affection. Though she didn't say much, her actions showed she had fully accepted Vera into the family. Many evenings ended with them drinking tea together, quietly chatting about life. In those moments, the affection between them was unmistakable. Vera's relationship with Alexander also blossomed. Their bond deepened with each passing day, built on respect and true feelings. Alexander was a simple man but with a generous spirit. He didn't offer material riches, but something far more valuable. He saw Vera for who she really was, not a name or a title, but a strong woman forging a new path. Their conversations were always sincere. They shared hopes and fears. Alexander spoke of the hardships he faced to care for his mother and keep the shop running. Vera spoke of her invisible prison, the expectations and suffocating pressure of her old life. One sunny Sunday, walking in the park, Alexander stopped, took Vera's hands and said, "I'm not a rich man. I can't give you the life you once knew, but I can offer you a real life built on love and honesty." Vera replied without hesitation, "What I had before wasn't life. What you offer is exactly what I've always wanted." Meanwhile, at the Timirov mansion, change was inevitable. Timur, after resigning and losing his influence, grew introspective. After many difficult conversations, he and Olga decided to divorce. There was no bitterness, just a mutual understanding that their life together was over. Timur, sincerely trying to reconnect with Vera, began visiting her occasionally at Luba's house. He respected her space and no longer tried to control her. On one visit, he brought a simple but meaningful gift, a childhood storybook Vera had loved. "I can't change the past," he said, "but I can try to be a better father now." Vera accepted the gesture with an open heart. It wasn't complete forgiveness, but it was a start. At Luba's house, other relationships strengthened. Andrei worked hard to become a constant presence in Nadia's life. One afternoon, he brought a guitar and played for her. It was a simple moment that filled the house with joy. Luba smiled quietly, seeing hope returning to her family. Inspired by her experiences, Vera decided she wanted a meaningful future. After much thought, she chose to study education. She wanted to work with children and young people, to help others. As she had been helped, one bright morning, she gathered Luba, Nadia, and Alexander. "I want to study education. I want to help others, as you helped me." Nadia hugged her, overjoyed. Luba said, "I'm so proud of you." Alexander added, "It's a beautiful path. And I'll be with you." Between daily victories and new plans, Vera's life gained new meaning. The rich and arrogant girl who once caused an accident was now a different person. Stronger, humbler, more aware of herself and the world. One quiet night, walking with Alexander under the city lights, Vera held his hand and said, "Maybe one day all of this will seem like a distant dream. But if I'm going to dream, I want you in that dream." Alexander replied, "It won't be a dream, it will be real. Our new beginning has already started." And so, under Moscow's starry sky, a new story was being written. Not one of wealth and power, but of love, learning, and rebirth. A story that Vera, at last, could call her own. ***.